Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in 1981 in New York State, now celebrating our 41st year. Today is Wednesday, January 4th, 2023 in the Gregorian calendar, and it is the 12th day of the 10th Israelite Hebrew month of Tevet in the Hebrew Israelite calendar, year 5783. Welcome to episode 40 of our weekly Root and Branch Association Torah Fellowship seminars, chaired by Torah Fellowship Chairman Rabbi Hananiah Weitzman of Jerusalem, Israel. And I repeat it every week, a giant of our time. Why? Because in the last, now it's 3 dark years, beginning in January 2020, it had been planned before, Rabbi Weitzman never wavered in speaking out the truth about the medical mass murder program, well underway worldwide now. And unfortunately, most of our rabbis and Torah institutions failed that test. That's a test which you can't take again, like I take my driver's test again. There is no, that's it, you're out. So there are very few people who earn the right to speak about Torah. Rabbi Weitzman is one of them. And now, without further ado, let me hand over the mic to our chairman, Rabbi Weitzman, for today's talk, the first of the new Gregorian year. Hanani, it's all.
Thank you, Lowell. Welcome to the class, everybody. Another edition of all the things that they don't teach you in the finest yeshivos. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do tonight, so I opened up Sefer Yeshaya at random, and it opened up the Parak Lamed Beis, chapter 32, and it's good stuff. So let's do it. Hein letzedek yimlach melech. For the sake of righteousness, a king will rule. Now, this is talking about the prophecy after the downfall of Ashur. This is during the times of the first Beis Hamikdash, after the 10 tribes had already been exiled, and it's prophesying now about the time immediately following the downfall of Ashur and Sancherev, which were besieging Yerushalayim. And it's now talking that the Jews are going to have a very righteous king by the name of Chizkiyahu. So it says, Hein letzedek yimlach melech, a righteous king will rule. That's how most of the commentaries explain this, that he is going to be a righteous king. Rashi, however, says, Ein mishpat melech limloch ki im lasos mishpat tzedek. The only law, the only right that a king has to rule, or really any type of governor, is for the sake of judging righteously. Now, isn't that a novel idea? Wouldn't it be nice for politicians to run on a platform of being righteous people who intend to judge righteously and govern the country with righteousness, not with virtue signaling about how they're going to save the world and reform society into some sort of utopian vision, but simply to judge with honesty, righteousness, and truth, and to do what's truly good for the people. A very novel concept. The Navi is saying here that the only right that a king or any leader has to rule at all is for the sake of judging righteously. If he's not going to judge righteously, we don't need him, and he has no right to rule in the first place, which pretty much knocks out all of the world leaders today. Ulisarim lemishpat yashoru, and to the officers, they will also do their duties with justice. That's their reason for being there in the first place. They're not here to rule over us, but they are here to govern with righteousness. V'haya ish kemachave ruach, and he will be a man, talking about Chizkiyahu again, he will be a man that you can hide from the wind with him. V'seiser zorim, and he will give you refuge from the rain, meaning that he'll be like a breath of fresh air from all the dangers and discomforts of the world. We will finally have a righteous king who will be a source of refuge for us. Gefalge mayim bitzayon, like a stream of water in a drought. You're really thirsty, and then you come upon a stream of water. Again, it's this beautiful feeling that you have. Kitzel sela kaved be'eretz ayefa, like the shade of a heavy rock in a dry land. You're in a dry land, it's a hot sunny day, and suddenly you find shade under a large rock, that also is like a breath of fresh air. That is the feeling that we have when we finally have a righteous king, a righteous government. And I'm sure that that's a feeling that we're all looking forward to today. Wherever we may be, we're living under tyrants, we're living under an evil government. We're looking forward to having a righteous government that will truly judge and rule with righteousness. That would be like a breath of fresh air, a drink of cold water on a hot summer day, and all the other metaphors that are given in this pasuk. Pasuk Gimel, Velosish ena ene roim, and the eyes of those who see will not be turned away, meaning turned away to falsehood. V'azne shomim tikshavna, and the ears of those who hear will listen, meaning a good king will inspire us to see the truth and to listen to words of Torah. Ulevav nimharim yavin lodas, and the hearts of fools, very interesting word for fools here, nimharim. This comes from the Hebrew word maher, which means to hurry, to rush, to do something quickly. This word is used here in reference to fools because fools tend to jump to conclusions. They tend to rush to judgments. Okay, so these types of people, and we see them at all times, and we see them in our times as well. As soon as a story comes out in the media, like a football player collapses on the field, you see people rushing to judgment. The shot caused him to fall. It can't possibly be the shot caused him to fall. People rushing to judgment is very foolish. Now, I tend to believe it's very likely that the shots caused this tragedy to happen, but we can't rush to judgment. Certainly on the other side, to say that it can't possibly be, and you're a bad person if you even entertain the notion or even express that the shot may have caused him to fall, right? That's rushing to judgment. A person shouldn't do that. That is a very foolish way of operating. Always rushing to judgment, of course, biased people will do that. They'll always rush to judgment to confirm their bias. That is a very foolish way to operate. So such people, yavin ladas, they will understand to have knowledge. They will probe, they will seek out truth, and they will ultimately arrive at knowledge. Ulashon ilgim timaher ledaber tzachos, and the tongue that cannot speak clearly, as most of the Mefarshim explain the word ilgim, cannot speak clearly, will now hurry. They will speak fluently. They will speak clearly. The Rav Yosef Kara explains ilgim. He transposes the lamed and the gimel from the word lag to be something that you make fun of. So he explains this pasuk to mean that the words of the prophets that people made fun of, now they will speak clearly, meaning people will now accept the words of the prophets. Again, the truth tellers tend to be made fun of at all times. So there will come this glorious period in time when those people will not be made fun of, but they will be listened to. We can certainly relate to that today and look forward to such a time. And also, according to the way most of the Mefarshim explain it, those who don't speak clearly, also in reference to fools, people that are not capable of expressing themselves very well, maybe people who have a speech impediment, like me, for example, they will be cured and they will be able to speak fluently and clearly at all times. Pasuk hey, lo yikare od l'naval nadiv. This is also part of this glorious time when we had a righteous king, and in the future when we will have a righteous king, they will no longer speak of a vulgar person. They won't call him a generous person. A naval is a low life, a vulgar person. People will not kiss up to him and call him generous and call him a prince. Ulekilai lo yamar shoah. Similar idea. Akilai, Rashi explains, is a trickster, a hustler, a swindler. They will not call him people will not turn to such a person either. Meaning in a time of truth, we're not going to kiss up to bad people, even if they have money. We're not going to kiss up to powerful people. We will speak the truth. We'll call it like it is. He naval nivala yedaber, because a lowlife, a vulgar person, will speak vulgarly. He'll speak lowlife, and the way of a lowlife. Filibo yase oven, and his heart will always be planning misdeeds. He'll always be planning wickedness. And like you see the leaders of the world today, they're always planning, they're always conspiring to do bad things. Lasos chonef, to do falsehood. Uledaber el Hashem toa, very important words here, and to speak wayward things about Hashem. People have all kinds of wacky ideas about God, about the Torah, and a lot of these people are simply not educated and they're foolish and they don't take the time to actually learn properly. The truth is out there. There are people that you can learn from. You can open the books and learn and have somebody guiding you in how to extract the truth from these holy books. But you also have evil people that on purpose are putting out false messages about God. And that's, of course, the times in which we are living today. Laharik nefesh, why do they do this? Laharik nefesh ra'iv, to empty out the life, the soul of a hungry person. Umashket sameh yachsir, and they will take away the drink of one who is thirsty. In other words, they're going to squeeze the poor people for every penny that they're worth. The evil people of the world, generally speaking, don't go after the rich because the rich are them. They're part of their little VIP club. If by accident a good person happens to get wealthy, so then they'll sick the government on them to tax that person to death or find some legal means of taking away his money. But most of the time, they're going after the poor people because those poor people are not part of the VIP club, and they try to squeeze them for everything that they're worth. Again, you see that the governments today squeezing the poor people, trying to extract every last bit of juice from them. So that's why they're speaking waywardly about Hashem, because they have to make it sound like it's righteous. They have to make it sound like this is God's will. It's for the good of society. It's for the betterment of the world, for us to confiscate everything, for us to own everything. This is what God would have wanted us to do, assuming they're even speaking as if it's God. They usually have their lackeys in, they have their chief rabbis, or they have their priests, or, whatever religion is the dominant religion of the land. They'll get religious figures to kosher up the theft that they're doing. The chelai kelav ra'im, and the hustler, the trickster, the swindler also has evil plots. Who zimos ya'atz, he conspires evil plans, conspiracy theory. Well, that's what they do. Lechabel aniyim be'imrei sheker, to injure, to harm poor people with words of falsehood. Ubedaver evion mishpat, and to speak justice, really injustice, against the poor people. Again, they have to kosher everything up, so they legally screw over all the poor people. This is how the justice system works. There's only justice if you're rich enough to buy it and pay for it, not necessarily through bribing the judges, although that's what they do, or by rigging the system, but being able to hire the most expensive lawyers, handle all of these expensive lawsuits. Justice is not really available for poor people. They're not able to work the system. They're not able to hire the legal help that they need. They're not able to pay all the legal expenses. The system is set up always to screw the poor people. This is the way they purposely designed it. According to the Torah, a court case of 1 penny is just as important as a court case of $1 million, because it's really the truth that we're after. And that penny to a poor person might be more important than the $1 million to a rich person. So we don't necessarily value a judgment based on the monetary funds that are hanging in the balance, but we're really focusing on the truth. That's not the way justice works in the rest of the world. There's one system of justice for those who are able to afford it, and then there's really another system of justice, really injustice, for those who aren't. So that's what they do. They plan a system to take advantage of poor people, but it's all done legally. V'nadiv nedivos ya'atz. However, a truly generous person comes up with conspiracies to do good for people, to genuinely do good for people, not the virtue signaling that the evil people do, but genuinely cares about the people and is coming up with plans and schemes. How can I make life better for the ordinary person? Who al nedivos yakum, and he will stand up with generosity. Again, we're talking about Chizkiyahu here as the righteous king. This is like a local prophecy talking for that time, but it gives us more of a global perspective as well, the way society should function and the way leaders should operate. Okay, now the Navi switches gears. Nashim sha'ananos komna, tranquil women that are living a very dainty lifestyle, very pleasant, dainty lifestyle, get up. Shmana koli, listen to my voice, says the Navi. Banos botchos, daughters who are living with security and confidence. Hazena im rasi, listen to what I am saying. And the Mefarshim say, some of them say that this is talking about cities, that the daughters, the women, is talking about cities in Israel that are very tranquil, living peacefully, and they feel that no harm can befall them, even though they are sinning terribly. So the pasuk continues, pasuk Yud, verse 10. Yamim al shana tirgazna bodchos, for year upon year, those who are living with confidence are going to be riled up. They're going to have troubles. Kikala vatzir osef b'liyavo, because the harvest has been destroyed, has been used up, and the time of gathering, nothing is grown. I mean, the crops are going to fail, there's going to be a food shortage, and suddenly life is not going to be quite so stable. Chirdu sha'ananos, tremble, those who are living with tranquility. Regaza botchos, again, be riled up, those who are living with confidence. Pishota ve'ora v'chagora al chalatzoyim, strip off your clothing and just cover yourself with a belt on your loins. This is a hint to the fact that they're going to go into exile because of all their sins. If they don't do tshuva, they're going to go into exile, which did happen, with not even the shirt on their backs, just like a belt covering their loins. They're going to be stripped bare of everything that they own, and they're going to be forced into exile. Al shadayim softim, on their breast, on their chest, they beat in mourning. Al Sidei Chemed Al Gefen Ria, for the lovely fields that they had, for the fruitful vines. They had a life of prosperity in former times. Their crops, their fields were very bountiful and beautiful, and now they're being marched into exile with nothing, so they're going to be mourning that which they lost. Al Admas Ami Kotz Shamir Ta Ale, on the land of my people, thorns, various types of thorns will grow in place of crops. Ki al kalbate masos kirya aliza, for on all the houses of joy and the cities of partying and celebrating, now they're going to be barren wastelands. Ki armon nutash, because the palaces have been abandoned. Hamon ir uzav, the multitudes of the city have left. Ofel vavachan haya, be'ad me'aros, and the fortresses have now turned into caves. Ad olam, forever. Really, it doesn't mean forever, because the exile isn't forever. It means for a very long time. Misos piroim mire adarim. So these fortified places have turned into revel houses for piroim as wild animals, and mire adarim as pastures for flocks of sheep. And some of the Mefarshim say here that the piroim, the wild animals, is a remez to the Arabs. Because as the Torah says, we talked about this in the Parsha, he's called Tera Adam. That was the prophecy that the angel gave to Hagar when Avram and Sarah banished her from the home, said that you will have a child, V'hu yeh Pere Adam. He will be a wild animal of a man. We saw from the Chavetz Chaim, I'll just say the idea again because it's very relevant, that in the Hebrew language, you don't say good boy, meaning adjective and then noun, but you say boy good. You say Yeled Tov. So when it's talking about a person being wild, it should say Adam Pera, man who is wild. But when it says Pera Adam, it's placing the adjective first. It's saying that that's his very nature, that the Arabs are wild people by their very nature. That's part and parcel of who they are. That can't be changed. That is the way these people are wild, are wired to be wild animals. So that's what it says over here, Misos Piroim, that Israel will be taken over, at least for a long period of time, by the Arabs, as it was. Right, and Mire Adarim, the flocks of sheep, is a hint to Esav, the Romans, the Western world, probably today the U.S., the UN, which really today still rules over Israel. We technically have a Jewish government, but they're not really Jewish. They don't really represent the Jewish people, and they have their strings pulled mostly by the Western world. So today Israel is occupied by the Jews, but it's really not run by the Jews, at least not real Jews. So this prophecy certainly came true. Pasuk Tesvav, so how long will this continue? Until Hashem pours upon us a spirit from up on high. V'haya midbar lacharmel, and the desert will be for a lush, bountiful land. V'hakarmel laya'ar yechashev, and the lush, bountiful land will be considered like a forest. I mean, there's going to be a role reversal. Israel, that had been a barren wasteland, thorns growing everywhere. The people the Jews were emptied out of their land. And now the Jews are going to return. A spirit will come from heaven. It's going to bring the Jews back to Israel, and then it's going to flourish again, right? Like the famous diary of Mark Twain, who visited Israel in the 1800s and said he doesn't know how people can live here. There's poverty, nothing grows, it's horrible, it's a wasteland, it's terrible. And then a few short decades later, suddenly the Jewish people came home in large numbers and the land opened up and flourished again. And Chazal say, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the last parak Chelek, gives various signs that we're living in the Messianic period. And it says the greatest sign of them all is when the land of Israel starts to be bountiful again. For thousands of years, there was a settlement in Israel. There were various nations that tried occupying our lands. They were never really able to get off the ground. They certainly weren't able to establish a country. That was a promise that was given to us in the curses and the punishment. There was a silver lining that no nation would be able to establish a country in Israel. Israel was occupied by many nations over the years, most recently the British and the Turks, but they didn't establish a separate country. They just occupied our land until it was time for them to go. And that's why I've said for many years, there will never be a Palestinian state. It is impossible. I said this 25 years ago, a long time ago. I visited a couple for Shabbos, and I made this comment to them. That was way back in the times of Yasser Arafat. May his name be blotted out and he should burn in hell forever. And there was talk then that they were going to establish a Palestinian state. I said, it's never going to happen. They'll be thwarted at every turn. One thing will lead to another. It's never going to happen. They laughed at me. They said, they're so close. They're signing agreements. I said, it's never going to happen. The Torah says there will never be a state within the biblical boundaries of Israel given a different name. Now you have Jordan, that's outside the biblical boundaries of Israel. That's where 2 tribes settled. That wasn't part of the original plan of Israel. It was later incorporated into Israel. But as far as the biblical boundaries of Israel, there never was, and there will never be a different country called by a different name, occupied by a different people. It will always be the land of Israel to the people of Israel, and every other nation that tried to establish a different country here, they were never able to get it off the ground. So there will never be a Palestinian state. Anyway, I got off track a little bit, but it was a very important point. What it's saying over here is that the greatest sign that the redemption is imminent is when the land flourishes again. When the Jewish people return and the land flourishes, that means that this is the real deal and it's real happening. So this is salt in the mouth of anybody who says, like I said last week, that there are oaths that we're not allowed to return. This is a sign that this is the real deal, that Hashem wants us to be here and that it's really happening. The Jews are not going to be exiled from Israel again. Israel cannot be destroyed. We have nothing to fear from Iran and their nukes. Israel cannot be destroyed. There will never be a Palestinian state. There can be troubles in Israel. There can be problems. Certainly, unfortunately, we're still doing Averos. We're still getting punished, and it's pushing off the redemption. It's making it come slower than we would like it to be, and with more tsaros, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen imminently. It can't be stopped. Israel is not going to be destroyed again. The Jews cannot be exiled again. And this is a reference to this greatest sign that the desert, the land of Israel, was like a desert, and suddenly it's flourishing. Even in the Negev today, the desert, they're still growing beautiful, beautiful produce. And the Carmel, the flourishing land, is going to turn into a like a forest just of barren trees. That's the rest of the world. Okay, when Esav is up, Israel is down, and when Israel is up, Esav is down, like a seesaw. And Esav was up for a long time, and now he's going down. You see the food shortages is coming to the rest of the world. That's what's coming now. Israel is still flourishing, and it's going to continue to flourish, but there's going to be problems in the rest of the world. The rest of the world is going to become barren. Pasuk Dazayin, V'shachan b'midbar mishpat, and justice will dwell in the desert, meaning what had previously been a wasteland, now there's going to be justice. Utstaka b'karmel tesha, and the mishpat is really going to be in the desert that's like the rest of the world. God is going to bring justice. Rashi says that in Yerushalayim that had been like a desert, now there's going to be justice. I'd like to suggest possibly that maybe in the rest of the world that will be turned into a desert, God will bring justice upon them, possibly, but that's not what Rashi says. Utstaka b'karmel teshev, and justice will dwell in the Carmel, in the fruitful land, again, meaning Israel. There will be righteousness, there will be justice. V'haya ma'aseh hatstaka shalom, and the actions of righteousness, of charity, will bring peace. You really want to have peace in Israel? You don't get it by giving away land to your enemies. You don't get it by being soft with your enemies. You don't get it by giving in to the rest of the world. You don't get it by coming up with all kinds of schemes, joining the World Economic Forum or the UN, etc. You get peace in the land by having charity and righteousness. If you have a good, honest government following the Torah, then you will have peace. Nothing else will work. Va'avodas hatstaka, and the labor, the work of charity is hashket vavetach ad olam, everlasting tranquility and safety. You want to have a safe Israel? You don't need a tough-talking prime minister, although to a certain extent, we do want a tough-talking prime minister as long as he's God-fearing and keeps the Torah. But what really brings the peace is the merit of the charity, the justice, and the righteousness. So we don't have control over who's pulling the strings, but we do have control over, to a certain extent, charity and righteousness, at least within our own spheres. We have to be kind, charitable people. We have to deal in justice with other people to the best of our abilities, and that will bring safety, peace, and confidence. Pasuk Yud Ches, V'yashav ami b'nevei shalom, and my nation, my people, will dwell in a habitat of peace. Uve mishkenos miftachim, and in a dwelling of confidence and safety. Uve menuchos sha'ananos, and in a resting place of tranquility and comfort. Uvarad beredes hayoar, the hail will rain down on the forest. Uvashifla tishpalo ir, and in the lower places the city will dwell. So the Mefarshim say over here, Rashi says that the Jews who had until now dwelled in a lower place, they're going to be raised up, and the city that will be lowered, Uvashifla tishpalo ir, and in the lowlands the city will be lowered. He says that's talking about Persia. This is interesting. Persia, of course, is Iran. That metropolis is going to be lowered in future times. Chazal also say that the final redemption, Iran is going to start a world war. There's already sort of a world war brewing in progress, but Iran is going to mix in, and they're going to get they're going to cause a lot of trouble in the world, and then eventually they're going to cause a lot of destruction, and then eventually Iran, Persia, really is going to be destroyed. So the hail is going to rain down on the forest, on the wicked people, but the righteous people are going to be saved. Ashrechem, last pasuk in the parak, Ashrechem Zore al kol mayim. Fortunate are those who plant by every water, by every source of water. Mishalche regel hashar v'hachamar. Those who send out the feet of the ox and the donkey. So on a pshat level, a simple level, the Mefarshim explained this to mean that Israel will be prosperous even during and especially after these difficult times. The land will flourish, it will be prosperous, they'll be able to plant. Everywhere they plant, it will grow. The animals will be sent out to pasture. It'll all be rosy. On a more of a drash level, they also reference the righteous actions. Those who are not planting seeds of crops, of produce, but they're planting good deeds, they're planting merits, they're going out to cash in on these merits. We'll read Rav Yosef Kara. He makes this point. I'll read this to you. Ashrechem Yisrael. Fortunate are you, Israel, that your righteousness, that your charity has become successful, meaning you're seeing the fruits of your labors. You've planted seeds of merits, of charity, and now you're reaping those fruits. Like you're planting by every source of water, that drinks from the water constantly. And now you're going to reap and harvest the merits of your good deeds. For thousands of years in exile, the Jews have been piling up the good deeds. Yes, we've done sins as well, and we've been punished, but we haven't really been rewarded fully for all of our good deeds. The schar, of course, comes in future times. We're going to get paid back for being loyal to Hashem in difficult times. All the good deeds that we've done, all the Torah that we've learned, all of our mitzvahs, all of our charity, none of it is wasted. Hashem is keeping track of everything. And when the audit comes, this is going to be a very favorable audit. Now we're going to cash in our chips, and all of these good things are going to come upon us. So the prophecy ends on a very positive note. We have some time left over. If you have any questions, put it in the chat box. I want to do one short idea from the Parsha and then a Mishnah from Pirkei Avos that we haven't done in a few weeks. Just one short idea from the Parsha is Parsha's Vayechi. I don't have too much to say about the Parsha, but one very important point. This is the wrong Chumash. Okay, so this is by Yaakov. Yaakov on his deathbed towards the end of his life, he made Yosef swear that he would have him buried in Israel. He didn't want to be buried in Egypt for several reasons, as Rashi explains. One of the reasons, of course, was that he didn't want to go through Gilgal Atzamos, which means that all the dead, by Tchias HaMesim, when the dead are brought back to life, those who are buried in Israel will get up first, and it will be very pleasant. Those who are buried outside of Israel, then there's going to be like underground tunnels, and the bones are going to roll underground all the way to Israel, and then they're going to get up. So it's going to be a very uncomfortable process, go rolling and rolling and rolling thousands of miles all the way to Israel. He didn't want to experience that, so he begged his son Yosef to bury him in Israel. One of the other reasons Rashi gives is that he didn't want the Egyptians to make an idol out of him, because Yaakov had brought great blessing to the land. Chazal say that the famine that was meant to be for 7 years stopped after only 2 years. The other 5 years were hanging in the balance, and they came at a later time. But when Yaakov came and he blessed Paro, so the Nile River overflowed, it watered the crops, and the famine ended then and there. So when the Egyptians saw that he was a very holy man, they would have made an idol out of him, as was their tendency to make an idol out of everything, instead of recognizing that he got his power from Hashem, and it was really Hashem ending the famine in Yaakov's merit, but they would have made a god out of Yaakov. He didn't want them to worship him or make the site of his burial a site of idolatry, so he wanted to be taken out of there and brought back to Israel. So anyway, Yaakov phrases this as Ve'asisa imadi chesed ve'emes. This is Perek Mem Zayin Pasuk Chav Tes. It's chapter 47, verse 29. He says to Yosef, Ve'asisa imadi chesed ve'emes. Do for me a chesed, an act of kindness, and emes is truth. Al na'atik mereini b'Mitzrayim. Please do not bury me in Egypt. So Rashi says on chesed ve'emes, chesed she'osin in hamesim hu chesed shel emes. What does it mean, a kindness and a truth? What is the truth involved over here? So Rashi says that an act of kindness that you do for somebody after their death is a true act of kindness. She'eino mitzapeh l'tashlim gumul, because you're not looking forward to them repaying your favor in any way. Normally, when we do a favor for somebody, we should have our hearts in the right place, but most of the time, it's certainly human nature. We expect that person to, at the very minimum, to be grateful for us and to express that gratitude to us as often as possible, because it makes us feel good, but also to return the favor. I did this for you. I expect you to do this for me. Payback. Okay, so it's not really a true favor. It's really more like a business investment. It's transactional. I'm going to do this for you, and I expect to be able to cash in that favor at a later time. That is not a chesed shel emes. That is a selfish act of charity. When people give charity and they want their names announced to the whole world that they gave money to charity, everybody should know and advertise it, so they're getting all of that glory. Okay, that's not really a truthful act of kindness. There is certainly merit in it, and the more pure their intentions are, the greater the merit will be. But there's probably going to be mixed in with that a little bit of an element of an ulterior motive. So it's not a chesed shel emes. The only true act of kindness, or at least a rare act of kindness, would be for somebody after their death, where you may get gratitude from that person in their lifetime if they're expecting you to do it after their death, like Yaakov did with Yosef. You may get honor from other people. You may get paid back from other people, but the person that you are doing that favor for is never going to be able to pay you back after you do the favor for him. So that is the most truthful act of kindness that you can do for somebody. In general, we should learn from this principle to try to make our acts of charity and kindness as truthful as possible, not to be expecting rewards for other people from other people for doing acts of kindness. The Rambam lists various ways of giving charity, is like a ladder, the lowest level to the highest level. And as you climb the ladder, the higher levels are all talking about cases where the beneficiary of your charity doesn't even know that you gave him charity. Like for example, if you're giving money to a fund, and of course the fund has to be run by honest, truthful people who are doing their jobs properly, and he's giving that to truly needy people, and he's doing it in a very responsible way. So in such a fashion, the giver doesn't know who the recipient is, and the recipient doesn't know who donated the money to him. So you're never going to get paid back from the beneficiary of your charity. That is one of the higher levels of giving charity. We like to give charity today to people who know that we're giving it to them, and they're always going to be ashamed in our presence because they know that we gave them something and they needed us and they owe us something. So it's still an act of charity. It's still certainly virtuous. It's still a mitzvah, but the higher levels are all various ways of giving charity where you can't get credit from the beneficiary of the charity. That is closer to a chesed shel emes, a truthful act of chesed. We should all aspire to do more truthful acts of chesed, and not because we are expecting favors back in return. Let's do one Mishnah from Pirkei Avos. We'll do from Perek Gimel, Mishnah Hey, skipping ahead a little bit from where we were last time, a few weeks ago. Chapter 3, Mishnah 5. Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana Omer, Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana says, call him a kabel alav ol Torah, anybody who accepts upon himself the yoke of Torah, ma'avirin mimenu ol malchus v'ol derech eretz. Hashem will take away from him the yoke, the burden of the government, and the burden of derech eretz. Derech eretz in this context means the ways of the world, meaning normal life. Life is troubles and errands, and they're just ordinary troubles that you have to earn a living, and you have to run your errands, and you have to do various things in life to get by. That's called the ol derech eretz, and it's burdensome. And because we're burdened by these things, we have to make appointments, and we have to stand online, and we have to travel from place to place for just ordinary errands. We don't have as much time to study Torah, to do mitzvahs, to focus on what's really, really important in life. So one who accepts upon himself the burden, the yoke of Torah, as compensation for that, Hashem will maybe not completely eliminate it, but he will lighten the burden. I guess the more you accept the yoke of Torah and you truly do it, Hashem will then lighten the load of the government and derech eretz, the ways of the world. Anybody who casts off from upon himself the yoke of Torah, so then Hashem will give him more heavily the burden of the government and the burden of derech eretz. Okay, we have 24 hours in a day. We have to spend a certain amount of time eating and sleeping and working and running errands and doing various things. So what's left really for Torah and mitzvahs? If we really try to maximize our time, the more we do this, Hashem will lighten our burden with other things. We'll find that things seem to fall into place more easily. We don't have to stand online as long. The government doesn't bother us as much. The various things in the world that impede us from really growing in Torah and mitzvahs will be lightened and hopefully fully taken away from us, so we can focus on what really counts. Either way, we're going to work hard. Okay, we're going to have to work hard, but we get to choose. Okay, it says in Eov, Adam la'amel yulad, a person is born to toil. There's no person in life who doesn't have to work hard. Even people who have a lot of money and have easy lives, they're still working hard. They're managing their assets. They're worrying that it won't be taken away from them. Everybody has to work hard with something. But we get to choose where we're going to focus most of our energy. And if we sincerely say to Hashem, I want to study more Torah, I want to do more mitzvahs, I want to have my mind and my time free to serve you better, Hashem will lighten the load of the government and the various errands of the world. And anybody who casts it upon himself, even if he has a good excuse to do it, Hashem says, you're making your choice, that you're working harder than you have to. You're looking to expand your hours. You're looking to expand your business more than it needs to be. You're looking to bring upon yourself more tzaras and more worries and more troubles and more responsibilities that you don't really need to have. So then fine, I'll give you more of that. I'll give you more problems with the government. I'll give you more problems with your business, more problems with everything in life, because you're choosing that for yourself. So you got what you wish for. It's a very important lesson, especially when we're living in a time of tyranny, worldwide tyranny. We don't want the government to bother us. We're not living with righteous kings and righteous government. If we had a righteous government, if I had a problem, I would welcome the opportunity to call up my righteous king and say, hey, there's a problem in my life. There's a problem in my city. Can you please help out and do something about it? But really, we want nothing to do with the government. We want the government out of our lives as much as possible. When the government is sending you mail, you're not looking forward to opening that mail. You're afraid it's probably trouble. It's probably a tax problem, or they're coming after you in some way. We're not looking forward to interacting with the government. So especially in times like that, where the government is evil and wicked, and every interaction you have with them is likely to turn out poorly for you and make life more difficult, we should accept upon ourselves the yoke of Torah to say, Hashem, you are my government, you are my king, I want to serve you. Please take away these other governments and kings, let them bother other people, let them not bother me. It's a very important segula, right? This is something that really works, really helps. It's taught in a Mishnah, and it comes from Har Sinai, as you learned in the very first Mishnah. All the teachings in Pirkei Avos come from Har Sinai. This is not a rabbi giving a drasha. This is somebody who had a Kabbalah, a rabbi who had a tradition dating all the way back to Moshe at Har Sinai. Hashem taught this to Moshe, and it was handed down from teacher to student till Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana authored this Mishnah and says, if you truly accept upon yourself the yoke of Torah, Hashem promises he will lighten from you the burden of the government, the tyrants, and all the other problems that we may have in life. Hashem will lighten that and give us an easier opportunity to serve him. Okay, that's all I've got. Lowell, you want to add anything at the end?
Yes. Here I come, my rainmaker job. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks. First of all, we thank Rabbi Weissman for another illuminating talk, and we're looking forward to we had this issue. How do we relate to the Gregorian New Year? We look forward for the year 5783 that we're in now, which is the first year of our 7-year Shemitah sabbatical year cycle. And who knows, maybe it's the Yovel Jubilee year. We'll see what happens by Rosh Hashanah. To more illuminating talks by Rav Hanania. Now, please support our work. Please support yours truly's work to build our Hebrew Bible-based Fifth Israelite Monarchy Broadcasting Network from Jerusalem, Israel, to honor the God-land, Torah, and people of Israel and all humanity. Click on the link below. Please support Rabbi Hanania's work by buying some of his many books. Buy them all. Buy them for your friends. Have foreign governments buy them and put them in all their consulates and embassies. I might learn something. And please subscribe to Hanania's Rumble channel and his email list for his many essays. They're all good. There's some of the few essays that come out. I actually read all of them sooner or later, line by line. So that's all I have to say. And we will see you next week, I hope. And then also we have Hanania's monthly Erev Rav and Amalek seminar. And I wish you Shabbat Shalom. And now I give it back to Hanania.
Thank you. Okay, there's one question that came in from David. Question about Yaakov. What led him to complain about the difficulties of his life when asked by Paro from last week's parsha, for which he was punished? Well, that's, Chazal talk about this. Yaakov did have a hard life. And really, it seems like a breach of etiquette. The king asks you, how old are you? And you start complaining about your troubles. That wasn't his answer. He should have said how old he was. And it seems that Yaakov looked exceedingly old for his age, even though he was well into his hundreds by then. I think he was 137 at the time. He was an old man, at least by our standards. But back then, people lived longer lives, and he looked old for his age. Again, 100 years old back then wasn't what 100 years is today. He should have still been more youthful and vibrant at his age. So he was really answering the question. He was explaining himself that, I look older than I am because I've had all these sorrows. However, there was a little bit of a tinge there of complaining about his life. That's not the impression that a holy man like Yaakov should have given to Paro, a foreign king. He was really, Yaakov himself was a Navi. He was a holy man. He was a patriarch of the Jewish people, and he should have somehow expressed that message in a more positive way. And because he didn't express it in the most positive way, that's why he was punished. But he answered the question the way he did because Paro was not simply asking, how old are you? That would have been a breach of etiquette from Paro's part. The first question you ask somebody when you meet them is not how old are you, unless maybe you're dating them. That's not a question that you ask a man when he's visiting your kingdom, but he looked so extremely old that Paro felt the need to ask him and find out a little bit more of his life story. But again, the way he answered the question, there was a little bit there. Again, if you or I answered the question that way, we probably wouldn't have been judged so harshly. But Yaakov was held to an extremely high standard. There was a little element there, a little element that gave the impression that he was not satisfied with his life or the way Hashem treated him. And of course, that's not the impression that Yaakov should have been giving to Paro. Okay, thanks again, everybody, for joining the class, and look forward to seeing you next week.